I believe I'm the right person for this job because I'm very feminine for this role. My feminineness, feminine sexuality, feminine personality will add value to this feminine role in the most feminine way possible.
Stop getting the wrong advice. Ensure you get the right skills for the right job for jobs in the Middle East. Contact Loy Macedo.
Ah, I was speaking to, uh, I think a 62 or 63-year-old expat from UAE. I think he was the second or third generation in UAE. They were in UAE since, you're talking of 1930s, like that, 1930s, 1940s. He was telling me about coming to UAE in a boat, coming to UAE in a boat and having a paper or something like that, and two-page, and people. There was no AC. Al Futtaim used to deliver water. Al Futtaim, which is the billion-dollar company, Al Futtaim. The owner, Al Futtaim, used to supply water on a donkey or something like that. And the Sheikh rulers, they would walk with, you could, just see them, and he would talk to the people. He would, Sheikh Zayed used to go help people with agriculture and ask the farmers what do they need, build wells. He also told me there was no road from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, and many people lost their lives, trying to go in four-wheel drives. He also told me World Trade Center was only one building, and then there were these, I think, these other buildings which are next to Emirates. Nothing else was there. Clock Tower was a small little thing, and from Sharjah to Dubai, it would take, 7 minutes. 7 minutes, imagine, from Sharjah to Dubai. 7 or 3 minutes, he told me. He told me the waves from Sharjah to Dubai, there was the sea. The sea would, the sea water would come and, up to the desert. What is there from Dubai to Sharjah, all the buildings, that land was pushed back. So he gave me quite a lot of, quite a lot of details. He was telling me about how once upon a time, he gave me the names of some big whatever. They would go to Pakistan to get girls, small girls, underage girls. They would get them in planefuls of them. Small children were being used as for camel jockey. That was a national sport, and Islam and Arabs, they were very conservative, very reserved, but very welcoming. Like Arab Emirati would actually welcome you, Faddal, Faddal, and they were like, Bedu, like farmers, like they would literally take care of you. They would invite you for tea. Obviously, ladies wouldn't mix, but they were very hospitable. They would offer you tea. Then the Arabs would welcome you to their, house. Even the buildings, apartments, the rent was 2,000 dirhams a year or less than that. That also, it was a substantially good apartment. There were no high-rise buildings. People would have a good life. It was very peaceful. Those days, you could come to Dubai on a 1,000 dirham salary, 1,500 dirham salary, and that was quite substantial. That was, I'm not talking of 1940s, I'm talking about 1970, 1980s. they were paying you like what would be like a basic minimum wage for there was no basic minimum wage, but they would pay you a substantially better salary than what you'll get back home. And I know this is true because my stepfather who only is, like you say, PUC pass. I don't know what's a full form of PUC in India. It's like high school pass. He got a job as a receptionist. Okay, and for a job as a receptionist, you'll not believe, by the time he left the company, he was thrown out after 20-25 years, his income in 1980s and 1990s was 8,000 dirhams. Just a receptionist. You're talking of a fat Indian guy just saying good morning Imitak. Just that. You know, Bukatir Investments. Bukatir was like a big businessman in Sharjah. He used to hold the Dubai Sharjah. Sorry, he used to hold the India-Pakistan cricket match those days in Sharjah. And there were so many betting lines and so much of money to be made, and people. There was no cricket stadium apart from in Sharjah. And Sharjah was more well-to-do than Dubai. Can you believe that? Sharjah, there was alcohol. Sharjah, it was like a modern place until they introduced the Saudi law and they shut down the bars and pubs and everything else. And that is where Dubai took advantage of that. I remember during my school days, there was only Cyclone Club. All the 12th standard boys, all we so-called seniors, Cyclone Club was the most happening club. It was a nightclub. If you could go there, you are the man. Indian high school was the premier school those days. I was in Sarj Indian, Kachara, Malbari school, with all my Malbari fellows. Oh, goodness. Then what else? Jumbo Electronics was major. There was only one shopping mall, that was Al Ghurair shopping mall. It was like Disneyland, you know, to go to Al Ghurair shopping mall. And Sindbad. Sindbad was the arcade place right at the top of Al Ghurair shopping mall, you know. And St. Michael's Church was in Sharjah. St. Mary's Church in Dubai was small. So there were so many things, man, so many things, you know. And those days, if you had to start a business, you needed a local Arab as your partner. And by default, 51% would belong to him. Your property, your money, your everything related to that company. By default, 51%. I think those days they would charge the mudir or whatever. He would charge sponsor. I don't know the right word, kafala or mudir. He would take 3,000 or 7,000 dirhams per year just to sign and stamp and submit for visas. And every time, you know, there were some rotten locals who, every time you'd ask them for a stamp or go for a visa, he would charge you 500 dirhams. And man, some of them really made life hell for expats. But those were the glory days. Those were the olden days. The leadership of Sheikh Zayed and the leadership of Sheikh Rashid. Glory days, man. Sheikh Zayed converted a desert, a nothing, into a stable agricultural economy, self-sustaining. Sheikh Rashid, on the other hand, Sheikh Mohammed's father, had the vision and foresight of the Shindaga tunnel. Imagine a tunnel underwater. People said he was crazy. They were doing the trade from Dubai Creek with Iran. He made that place even better. And then to ensure better trade, Jabal Ali seaport, which everyone said he has gone mad. Why would anyone need a seaport those days? But he had the vision and foresight. And then Dubai International Airport. Oh, wow. Nobody had that vision, nobody had the foresight. But he had. In fact, there is this story where, I don't know how far this is true, but it's urban legend. Sheikh Rashid sat in a helicopter, and it was young Sheikh Mohammed or somebody else sitting in the helicopter, and he was telling these Indians are this and that and all that nonsense, of these expat workers. He hates them and he was angry with them. So Sheikh Rashid took Sheikh Mohammed in a helicopter and he went up and he showed him UAE. And he said, all this development that you can see, this is all because of these expats. We have to learn to respect them, we have to learn to live with them, we have to learn to love them. So Sheikh Rashid really, genuinely was an incredible human being. Among my favorites was Sheikh Zayed and Sheikh Rashid. The people I really love and respect. And yes, because I stayed in Sharjah my entire life, Sheikh Qasimi, a very peaceful, very loving, a person who wanted to transform Sharjah into, like an educational capital of UAE. That is why he encouraged universities, he encouraged reading, he encouraged learning the Quran, he encouraged education. But he didn't glamorize and show things off like Dubai. Dubai was more like glitz and glamour, and Sheikh Mohammed moved into horse racing. Sheikh Mohammed moved into making Dubai modern, from horse racing to gambling to brushing shoulders with the elite, to allowing bars, pubs, nightclubs, the growing white community, Western community, was because Sheikh Mohammed modernized Dubai. And then we obviously know the initial growth. Okay. However, after that, things went out of control, and you know that. And if you want to really know what was the difference in leadership, go to Al Quwain, go to Ras Al Khaimah, go to Fujairah, and compare Al Quwain, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah with Dubai. Compare Al Quwain, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah with Abu Dhabi, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's heaven and earth, man. In fact, Dubai was so successful at marketing its image and showing itself as big and wow. The entire world, not just few people, the entire world mistook Dubai as the capital of UAE. Seriously. The entire world, we're not talking of people, the entire world assumed Dubai was the capital of UAE and Sheikh Mohammed was the ruler of ruler of UAE. It went to the point where Abu Dhabi literally bought in signboards, welcome to Abu Dhabi, the capital of UAE. It was a massive ego drive between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Dubai would bring in the Palm Island 1, 2, 3, Abu Dhabi bring in Yas Island. Dubai would try to modernize the roads, but Abu Dhabi was already wide. You see, Abu Dhabi's roads they didn't break that and destroy that until I think 30 or 40 years later. But Dubai, every year, I'm not joking, every year, every 2 years, they would destroy the road, build another bridge, destroy the road. In fact, the Dubai-Sharjah highway, the Dubai to Jebel Ali highway, those flyovers which are there, you'll be shocked to know they built and destroyed it, I think nearly 5 times or 6 times, and each bridge was costing was costing around 100 to 200 million. Nobody knew what the fuck was happening. They would build it and then next year destroy it, then build it, then after a few years destroy it. I don't know what the hell was going on. However, Dubai grew overconfident, which happens to anyone and everyone. When you have everyone kissing your ass and telling you can achieve anything, impossible is anything. And Dubai went on an ego drive with Palm Island 1, 2, 3, the world, then biggest, largest, tallest, everything. They wanted to build the metro within a record 1 to 2 years or 5 years or whatever. And that is where, when you start becoming overconfident, you lose everything. And Dubai, the problem is, it was showing off too much. Too much to the point where cracks between Emiratis started to show. Abu Dhabi Emiratis wouldn't get along with Dubai Emiratis, and they would not get along with Sharjah Emiratis. In fact, there was a kind of like indifference. I was shocked to know from a Emirati local that Emiratis who were fair-skinned, would treat dark-looking Emiratis in a bad way. In fact, one of the Emirati even told me that check all the government officials, all of them are white. White skin, white looking. There is no black looking Emirati in the government. I checked, I found it true. I don't know how far I'm right or wrong, but it seems all the rich, successful or powerful Emiratis are all fair skin. They don't like dark skin. They don't like black. And that is why all of the Emiratis, their wives are all white. They consider white to be royalty. They consider black to be ugly. I don't know, you can tell me if my findings were true or false. So now the question comes, what do I mean by the glory days are finished? What do I mean by when I say UAE and Dubai will never be the same again, or Abu Dhabi or whatever? I'll explain. Once upon a time, you could come down to UAE, okay? You could come with hardly any qualification, hardly any credentials. You could come to UAE and take up a job as a receptionist, salesman. You could take up a job literally as anything, and nobody would, there were always jobs. Because Dubai was that time just starting. And so many people took up a job with 1,500 dirham salary, 800 dirham salary. And from there, almost everybody, every single person from 800 dirham salary, in a period of 10 or 20 years, would grow to become the director of the company. I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating. Every person who joined UAE and was serious about making money and career, if you worked hard enough, you would keep getting from 1,500 or 800, you would end up getting 15,000, 20,000, 45,000, 50,000, 50, that kind of a salary. Majority of them started off small and ended up having their own business. They would run their own business. And because Dubai that time was UAE was just starting, every business would be successful. I know so many people who started switchgear companies. I know so many people who started printing companies. I know so many people who started export-import companies. Any business you would start, any business, by default, you would succeed. There was no other place in the world like UAE. Seriously, no other place in the world. And Dubai was a place to be. Next was Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi was a little sleepy, but you could say Dubai. Even Sharjah, at those days, Sharjah was next. But Sharjah followed a kind of Sharia, draconian lifestyle. That is why Dubai was fast and furious. It was so much so was the reputation of UAE that if any Indian or Pakistani or Bangladeshi or Sri Lankan would say, I'm from Dubai, when they would go back to their home country for a holiday, like when I used to go with my parents for a holiday to India, oh, they're from Dubai, hey, Dubai. I'm telling you, the wow factor was Dubai. Ooh, he's from Dubai. And at the airport, the immigration officials would wait to check how they could take money from you for luggage or something. people would, when they would travel with this oversized suitcase, and we would fill the suitcase with almonds, peanuts, chocolates, Galaxy, Snickers, Toblerone, even Spam, the ham, no? Because all this stuff was not available in India, Mumbai especially those days. Those days it was not there. I'm talking of maybe before, during the Indira Gandhi era, 80s. So when anyone would come from Dubai, wow, Dubai, and people would gather around the person coming from Dubai. When they would open the suitcase, oh, nuts and peanuts and cashew nuts and from duty free. That time duty free was so fucking small, man. And it was actually duty free. Today duty free is it's like you pay 100 times more. It's fucking a joke. So, and the halo effect of UAE was so much so that, for matrimony, for marriage, especially in India, they have this arranged marriage. The girl's father, if a family had a girl, if anyone was from Dubai, they would line up for, to ask for the hand in marriage. Like, can you accept my daughter who is from Dubai? Can you take my daughter and get married? Oof. If you would say you're from Dubai, that itself was bigger than a PhD, bigger than being a doctor. There was so much prestige value. He's from Dubai. And that is why you would see so many Keralites, so many South Indians. They would end up working in Dubai, but they would build a villa, massive mansion back home. Seriously, just check. All those people who worked in Dubai during the glory days, they would construct a massive house in India. Massive house, massive villa. It was like people were like, fuck, Dubai, there is money hanging on the trees, man. Fuck, if we go to Dubai, our life will change. People were begging, they were dying to come to UAE. Those days, you're talking of, there was no internet, there was no computers. In fact, you'll find this funny if I tell you. This encyclopedia, Britannica encyclopedia? Every house would have Britannica encyclopedia, Tell Me Why series, Atlas World Map. You remember those? Yeah. Computer was, 186 or 386 or 486 computer, CRT monitor. And the big reveal was Pentium. Oh, Pentium. Pentium was a big thing. I remember when computers had a green screen, green, blinking cursor. There was no games, nothing. You just had to type DOS, MS-DOS, Windows, MS-DOS, Windows 93, Windows 95, Windows 98. We had video cassettes. Oh, Al Mansoor and Kings. For those of you who are there in UAE all these years, you'd know Al Mansoor, and Choitram and Lal's. These were supermarkets. Lal's, Choitram. There was no Carrefour those days. Lal's and Choitram were monopoly, run by Indian brothers, I think. Lal's and Choitram, and what else? Taxis were run by Pakistani Pathans, Pakistanis and Pathans, and it was so nice when you'd sit in a taxi. They would have the bling, Pakistani bling, the green and decoration, and it would have that typical Pakistani smell, man. Oof, smell of sweat when you'd sit in a car. And when you would open the car, kitna? 5 dirham, 3 dirham dega. Acha, chalo. Yeah, let's go. 5 dirham, no, 3 dirham. Okay, 20 dirham, no, 15 dirham. You would bargain, And there was no meter reading, nothing. Abu Dhabi had meter reading. I think, yeah. Dubai, Sharjah, there was no meter reading. And, man. The nostalgia that is there. Those days, it was so amazing, man. The only big mall, the first big mall was Burjuman shopping mall. Burjuman. No, first was Al Ghurair. Al Ghurair was a big shopping mall. It was like, wow. But it was like a building apartment. All the rich who's to stay there. Next came Burjuman. Oof. We were like zapped. Burjman was the place to hang out. Bird Dubai was the computer street. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry would open up a, computer parts shop there. You could be an employee, first year, second year, open a computer shop. Then GITEX, the first GITEX that was held, they actually had technological reveals. The first GITEX that they had, I was in school days those days, they would actually give you free, real good free stuff, real good free stuff. Really good. I'm not talking of mouse pads and all that. You're talking of real original stuff. What a quality event GITEX was. Dubai Air Show, I happened to work there. The first or second air show. I have the certificate still with me, lying somewhere. What an amazing experience. Yeah. Fuck. Amazing, amazing. The Etisalat, they would give you the telephone, the white one. The mobile phone was this big fucking military grade kind of shit. And then Etisalat telephone cards were there. Their telephone cards. There was no do. You'd put in those telephone cards. Wish I'd collected them. Oh, there were telephone booths. If you had to buy the CD or DVD, there was no DVD, sorry, CD or tapes, there was in the souk. And everyone was, piracy was all time high. You could buy a pirated tape, music tape, like Michael Jackson's. They were in this nice plastic little container, like, open it. Oh, it was 100 dirham, fuck. Michael Jackson's, remember Michael Jackson? And Al Mansoor and Kings, fuck, they were monopoly. They were copying new releases left, right, and center. They would copy it on pirated piracy. There was no anti-piracy law. But when the anti-piracy law came, Al Mansoor and Kings shut down, fuck, in months. In months they had to disband their operation. I know the owner of Sabah Video. There was King's Video, Al Mansoor Video, and Sabah Video. It's amazing, man. It's amazing how times just changed. And Emirates Airlines had just started. They were actually headhunting for expats from St. Mary's and other schools. And you'll be shocked to know this. They were actually headhunting. They would ask you to join. They would pay for your education. They would pay for your development. My friend joined when they were recruiting openly in St. Mary's. Joined for 1,500 as an engineer. They trained him, where later on he got, I think, 35 or 45,000. But those days are gone. Dixie Cola, Pepsi Cola, Dixie Cola. The chocolate bars and all that, Cocoa or whatever. Dubai Channel 33, Dubai FM. Fuck, FM 92. We would sit and wait Thursday night to watch a Hindi movie on Channel 33. Richard Coram would say these Hindi names. It was so funny. Becha ka baita. Bacha ka baita. It was so funny. And then we would watch the movie. Then obviously when after the Pakistani, I think President or Prime Minister came to UAE, then they would show one day Indian movie, one day Pakistani movie. Nobody wanted to watch the Pakistani movie. Because the Pakistanis were so less. And, those days they used to have the tape deck. You would have the tape. It was like a big, huge thing, man. There would be the tape deck. There would be the graphics equalizer. There would be something else, radio tuning. Oh, it would be this big thing kept in a glass shelf. Oh, those days. LPs were a big thing, LPs, But then came CDs, DVDs. It's nostalgia to its best. 50 fils, you could buy a kadak chai. 2 dirhams, you could eat breakfast with a parota. You know. Oh, my mother and father, for us, eating pasta was pasta, pizza, pizza. In church, St. Michael Church, there was a Caesar's cafeteria that became a massive big hit. I don't know what happened to them now. Restaurants, you could open any restaurant, it would be a very smash hit. But like I was saying, why those glory days are over is because those days there was no internet, there was no computers. So information was passed on word of mouth. However, slowly after the phones came in, then the computers came in, internet was still at its infancy. Then once the internet age dawned in with the Yahoo taking over the search engine, then following that Google, information started to pass more freely. And the minute information passed more freely, Sheikh Mohammed had the vision and foresight to launch Dubai Internet City, Media City, because he knew there would be MNCs coming in. And the minute UAE started to open up as a business hub, as a global hub, the boom, the maximum, the peak took place from the 80s, went up to the 90s. And then when the property boom took place, it was like growth on steroids. Never before in the history of UAE, and never again, huh? You'll never see it happen again. So much money, so much black money came in, so much investment came in, so much of business, so much of hype. It was crazy. They believed, Sheikh Mohammed, Sheikh Saeed actually believed that UAE, just UAE, forget, even, they would even have this belief that Dubai, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this, that Dubai could overtake China, Dubai could overtake USA, Dubai could overtake China, India. They actually said it. And how I know it? I heard it. I was there at that events company where I was the AV guy. Sheikh Saeed, when he spoke at this conference, oil conference, I was there. He said UAE will overtake China, Russia, USA, India. In terms of GDP, value, this, that, everything. We will be more powerful and blah, 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 went on. That was the boom period, man. That was growth on steroids. They started dumping sand in the water, Palm Island 1, 2, 3, the world. And that is where banks started to play games. First they would say, okay, pay down payment, okay, so much cash. And during the boom period of the credit cards and loans that banks, see, remember this much, the banking system in UAE has the highest interest in the world. Highest interest in the world. Okay? Highest. And especially credit cards. I remember in 2001, when they were issuing Citibank credit cards, hardly anybody had a credit card. Nobody had a credit card. Nobody knew what was a credit card. And when they came out with the credit card, oh, you can get 3 times your salary, 5 times your salary. People thought, fuck, free money, fuck. And people were taking, left, right and center, people were taking credit cards. I know people who had 15 credit cards, 1-5. Oh, fuck, it's a gecko. Can you see this? It's a gecko. Smashed gecko, sorry. People had 15 credit cards. You're talking of each credit card being, 5 times or 10 times your salary. Just think for a minute. Do the calculation. If 10,000 is your salary, 10 times is one credit card. So that's 100,000. And then you have 10 credit cards. So that's 1 million. People thought it was free money. People didn't know how to compute interest. People didn't know late payment fees. People didn't know hidden charges. It was going out of control. And then on top of that, if that was not bad enough, you had property, let's say, for example, a house like this, say the cost was, the actual value, selling price, normal selling price was 100,000. When they would sell it, let's say in the market, they would say, okay, put instead of 100,000, put 10,000. So people are like, oh, okay, I'll put 10,000. Then, because of the demand, that 100,000 dirham house went to 200,000, 300,000, 500,000, 1 million. The value, they were just hyping it like crazy. And then it was not surprising to know that the same house, the value from 100,000 would be at 10 million. I'm not joking. It's actual facts. Maybe the amounts can vary. But from 100,000, the value went up to 10 million. And then when the sales are declining, how the banks or the property sellers were playing games. First they would say pay 10%, 10,000. Then they would say, okay, don't pay 10,000, pay 5,000. Then when demand went up, pay 1,000, man, 1,000 and it's yours, you know. Then you can pay installments. They did this with the property, they did this with laptops, they did this with any product or service, with cars, especially cars. Do you know, once upon a time in UAE, you know the four-wheel drive, those big ass cars. Once upon a time, four-wheel drives, only Arab Emiratis could own it. First it was only Sheikh families, then it became only Emirati could own it. And Al Futtaim and Al Tayer and all that realized, you know, if you have to sell, you can't have only Emiratis own it. Emiratis hardly 10%. So then they allowed a select group of HNI, high network individuals to have. First they gave it only to Westerners, then they gave it to rich Indians because Indians are more rich. Very soon they said, okay, anyone who has money, buy it. In fact, you know, car tinting, where you tint the car glass, 60, 70 or whatever percent, only a local could do that. Indian could do maximum, expats could do 20 or 10% or 15%. 15, I think, maximum. It was so funny, ridiculous, stupid rules, man. Local had certain privileges. Yeah, it was borderline fucking racism. So, and salaries, you all know that. If you are from the Asian country, they would give you 1,000. If you are from India, they would give you $1,000, for example. If you are from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, let's say you will get $500. If you are from India, you will get Pakistan, you would get like 1,000. Indian, 1,500. Then South African white, you would get maybe 3,000. Australian and Australian would get 5,000. Then American would get 7,000. British, 10,000. Local Emirati, maybe 20,000. And this is dollars, huh? Same job, same position, same everything. Only difference being, it's your passport. Second difference, Indian has to work, or people from the East have to work 6 days a week or 7 days a week. You have to work overtime. British, American, 5 days a week. And anytime there's overtime, oh, Ram will take care of this. Ram, just make sure the project is delivered, man. And you'll be lying on the beach somewhere. Yeah, because those were the days. Emirati would come to work for 1 hour. 1 hour he would just come, lift his kandura, put his legs on top of the chair. Wallah, what happened? What happened? Okay, yalla, do. He'll talk to somebody, walk off, come 3 times a week. That was office for him. That was before. You know, and you couldn't terminate a local. No fucking way. You terminate a local, you'll fucking shut down your company. You'll complain to the labor that you're treating UAE Emirati like shit. Those were the days before, you know. But then, you can only... The problem is people do not know where to stop. You keep pushing. It's like, you know, the best example I'll give you is a glass. You put one object on top of the glass, nothing will happen. 2 objects, 3, say object, let's say stone. Put 1 stone, nothing will happen. Put 2 stones, another, 3 stone, 5 stone, 10 stone. Soon you put so many stones, at one point, when you put the last big stone, the weight will be so bad or so much for the glass, it will not like slowly crack. It'll just break. It'll just explode, like, you know, because the glass cannot take it anymore. And after the glass breaks, if you try to, you cannot glue the glass, you cannot stick it together, and even if you do, it's not going to be what it was. That is UAE's economy. UAE kept taking project after project after project after project, hyping up the values. The banks were fooling people left, right and center, cheating people, playing with the rules. The greed was right from everywhere in the world. Every bank wanted to make money. Every banker wanted to make the commission. Every seller wanted to make money. So everyone was using loopholes. The banks would use the loopholes. Government officials would use the loopholes. Banks would use the loopholes. Bankers would use their own loopholes. Then the buyers would use their loopholes. Sellers would use their loopholes. In the end, who's the person who would suffer? The only person who would suffer is the poor, the 80%. The ones at the top, the 20%, were becoming rich and richer and richer. That time, companies just started. Google, Amazon, Facebook, eBay. You remember ICQ? You remember MySpace? Remember Hotmail? Those were the days. Yahoo chat groups. However, once the economy broke, it didn't break once, it broke multiple times. The property crash, the the Middle East problems, then you're talking about the terrorist attacks, and very soon the recession. The recession hit multiple times, and finally it came down to this COVID crisis. Today, if anybody comes to UAE, yes, UAE will make far more better money than you would make if you're back home in India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. Still, it still holds good, but you'll not grow like before. Getting a job is not as easy as before. You can't just type some shit on a CV and expect to get a job. You can't just use Vasta and contacts and get a job. No, those days are gone. Emirati locals cannot just sit and warm their asses. They'll be booted out. By the way, Emiratis today are being educated in some of the best universities. They're really being pushed. Not all locals, but majority. Others, nobody wants to employ them. Nobody wants to fucking give them a job. See, Emiratization. What the fuck happened to Emiratization? Total fucking failure, man. They keep talking Emiratization. What the fuck, Emiratization? What, you have hardly 10% of the fucking population that doesn't want to fucking hardly work, wants 10 times the fucking salary higher than others for the same work. What the fuck can you do that any Indian, Pakistani, Sri Lankan cannot? What the fuck are you doing so great? Tell me. In fact, Indians, Pakistanis, Sri Lankans can work much better than you. They can't handle it. Proof of this, the proof. In the Olympics, how many Emiratis are gold medalists? In the world stage, how many Emiratis are number one? Forget in the world stage. In the Middle East competitions, UAE is number one in how many things? Football, yeah, goal, Allah, goal, yeah. Only that. And the Arabic dance, and camel running. That's it. Falcon, some shit. What else? Horse riding, endurance, and the only races that Sheikh Mohammed was winning was endurance and derbies until they got caught for steroids. After this, after Sheikh Mohammed's horses got exposed for steroids, I don't hear any races Sheikh Mohammed's horses winning. Have you heard any horses? Anything? See, with the internet era, information started passing by freely. People started to get it. Like my YouTube channel would never exist before. There was no fucking YouTube, man. There was no career apart from doctor, engineer, doctor, engineer, what else, astronaut, those days. And if you came to UAE, you either do commerce, science, there was nothing for arts. You could join any job as sales. Like I told you, there was only Dubai FM 92 that was catering for only Goras and whites. There was Channel 33, which was, for those days it was okay. Arabic cartoons and Captain Majid and all that. Today, you're talking of global fucking competition. People have access to CNN, BBC, social media, fucking information. When there's a fucking explosion in UAE, forget CNN, BBC, all of them hearing. I hear it. When that explosion took place in Abu Dhabi, I got it. The minute it happened, I received the information. Do you know that Emirates Airlines, the termination, mass termination, 3 months before it was fucking announced, I knew about it. 3 months before. B.R. Shetty's son, before Al Jazeera published it, I put it up. Come on, man. Today, information fucking... You will not believe if I tell you. I know you'll not believe. I don't give a fuck whether you believe or not. I have people from CIA, FBI, CNN, BBC, royal family, fuck politicians, this, that, getting in touch with me here and there and talking to me. It's just that I can't go around bragging about this. They call me out of the blue. Sometimes the fucking number is just some fucking +0. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Man, I have received people who know the Malaysian government, people who know Vladimir Putin, people who have personally known Sheikh Fazza, Sheikh Mohammed, Sheikh Zayed, people who have been, who are porn stars, people who are underworld criminals, people of ex-military, ex-this, ex-that. It's fucking crazy, man. Me, out of all the people living in Samui, a small island, small piddly channel, which is hardly anything. In fact, I know there are so many stories I know which I cannot share. Because if I do share, it'll be sensational, but I won't exist the next day. I will not exist the next day. Those stories are so... I'm telling you, it's... these journalists getting killed and accidents. You don't think for a minute it was actually an accident. See, I keep walking up and down. Tomorrow one car will come, just fucking hit me and walk off. Who's there? Who's there? After they hit me, they'll take the camera, vanish. They'll take a gun, shoot, finish. So, there's so much of information that is going on today. And UAE cannot hide anything. Israel's Prime Minister, I told you before, Israel's relationship with UAE. People are laughing. When I told you about Emirates Airlines termination, people are laughing. Emirates Airlines cabin crew, they made groups and they were attacking me. Literally, left, right and center. People laughed when I told them that the banking sector is going to terminate mass. People are actually laughing. They're like, shut the fuck. I got amazingly attacked by Emirates Airlines crew. They said, ha ha ha, what the fuck are you talking? We are one family, nothing is going to happen. They assured us. See my videos. See the videos when I said Expo 2020 would fail. Okay, I didn't predict the COVID crisis. I told you Expo 2020 will be a disaster. When did I put it? Just check the videos, no? I put 10 reasons not to stay in UAE. I put it that time. People are laughing. They're saying, oh, you're a hater. Today, that same prediction has come true, right? See, this is not to say UAE is finished. UAE will remain. Dubai will remain. It's not going to vanish. However, the dynamics will never be the same. The dynamics will never, ever, ever, ever be the same. I'll tell you some of the things that will never be the same. Okay, number one. Let's start with the stuff that you know. Emirates Airlines, the aviation. Before I told you 5 years, for Emirates Airlines to go back to glory days, 10 years. Okay? That's my first prediction. Emirates Airlines, 10 years. The people will go back to a bit of normalcy. It will go back to normal, okay? But the people who have lost their jobs are gone. The new generation that will come will join Emirates. But the packages will not be like before. The perks will not be like before. The benefits will not be like before. And nobody would want to continue with Emirates for too long unless they are really stupid. Now, not Emirates, in the sense that nobody would want to continue with the aviation career as cabin crew, because they will realize it is short-lived. Unless you're an idiot of a special kind. Because greed, complacency, mediocrity never ends. That's why even though property market has crashed, even though stock markets have crashed, even though cryptocurrency people have got cheated, you never stop. So, aviation, after 10 years, will come back to its former self, but there'll be plenty of graveyards, plenty of dead brands. That's one. Second prediction is Dubai will continue, UAE will continue exactly the way it is, but those easy money-making days are over. If you go to UAE with a 1,500 dirham salary, you'll be stuck with 1,500, max maybe double after 5 to 10 years. The olden days where you would start with 1,500 and in 10 years you would go to 30,000, and another 10 years you would go out to 50,000 and be a businessman, be a multi-millionaire like B.R. Shetty. Those days are finished. You could fake audited financials, you could fake reports, you could fake ISO certification. All those days are gone because today investigative journalism is there. The glory days, you say, I'm from Dubai. Wow, you're from Dubai. Nobody would give a fuck. Those days, matrimonial. Oh, he's from Dubai, please take my daughter's hand. They would say, from Dubai, a fucking refugee. Go fuck off, man. They wouldn't give a fuck. People would try all various kind of careers, creative careers like photography, artistry, acting, movies, modeling. But this would be more like a side gig, not a full-time career. Full-time, you'll not succeed. All these travel vloggers, bloggers and all that, they'll do so cautiously because now they've realized this is not a consistent career. Online, there will be much more shifts. US, will keep introducing. But USA will no longer be the dominant force. No longer. Russia, China, all these other countries, even the European Union, even though there's no union, they will make sure that US doesn't come back to its status of power. Those days of nuclear bombs is gone. Information age is also gone. Now comes the, the digital age is gone. The information age. Everything will be AI based. Everything will be information. There'll be info wars. And US will struggle, really struggle. And now people have realized the best way to destroy US is to do the same thing that US used to do to others. US used to come and supply weapons to Iran and weapons to Turkey and weapons to UAE and weapons to Saudi and say attack each other. What these other countries will do is, within USA itself, they would tell people to fight within each other, people to attack each other. The information they will use against each other, and that will destabilize the economy. See, US being so modern, so progressive, they are unable to contain the virus. Why? Come on, man. So it'll have a change of guard. See, you may not believe this. Why? Because you're of a particular era. I mean, think about it. Think about it. If someone would tell you that AOL would cease to exist, that Russia would collapse, that Hotmail would no longer be the preferred email. I mean, who ever thought of Yahoo being dethroned, man? Who knew Google? MySpace, it was a dominant factor. Where was Facebook? Did Facebook fucking exist? Tell me, Kodak, it vanished. Nokia, fucking vanished. GE, General Electric, it was such a big company. Forget that. Let's look now. What happened with the Emirates Airlines? Oh, $1 billion company. Couldn't be touched. What happened? What happened to Arthur Andersen? What happened to Enron? See, people think nothing can happen, invincible. No, it's not, man. Google will be the dominant force until sometime. It'll have a change of guard after a couple of, maybe a generation or two. Google.com will no longer be there. Facebook will no longer be the dominant force. Facebook will vanish. Google will vanish. Man, just look at the gaming sphere. See how many games were at the top and vanished. A game like Candy Crush became the most addictive game in the world. Would you have ever imagined that? Remember pagers? People used to have pagers. Pager, you know, you have to speak to someone with a phone, with a receiver. And they would shout. If suppose there was a caller in Dubai, they would say hello. The minute you would say someone from India is calling overseas, hello, hello, they would shout so loudly. It's like you want the voice because, you know, you're talking to India, so you have to shout louder because you're talking to someone in India. Those were the days, man. Aviation, I told you. Banking also not going to have the glory days of the past. All those bankers who made money, you made money, that's it. Your days are over, game over. Go back to your fucking village that you came from. Nobody will give you fucking importance. Then property market up and down, it'll be more like gambling and, you know, you sell, you're lucky, you're lucky. It'll be very, very competitive, very competitive. Even though Goras used to get easy salary, you're not going to get easy salaries anymore. People are going to test your competency, your credentials. Yes, they would pay you a little bit more. But the Indian workforce, they're much more educated today, much more smart, much more competent. See, those of you who made easy money, big money, with a good job, especially Emirates Airlines, VIP, fucking meeting with VIPs, staying in 5-star hotels, enjoying excellent food, taking photographs on Instagram with your bikini, showing your cleavage, showing your ass, showing, oh, beautiful greenery, oh, I'm traveling the dream, believe in yourself. Yeah, you can now try Pornhub. That's the only avenue you'll try, because nobody wants a, you know, who wants a overpriced ass? You know? What? Who wants a fucking expensive car when the objective is to travel from here to there? You're a fucking Rolls Royce, or you assume you're a Rolls Royce. You are actually a Toyota. People are paying you money to look like a Rolls Royce. So they'll say, fuck off. Nobody will give you your ass any importance. Anyway, you're a female. Your body is deteriorating with age. Females, you'll try your surgery, you'll try Botox, you'll try injection. Then you look like a mutant. Like, you know, this silicone will remain perfect, intact. Everything else will become like this. Have you seen females who surgery face has shrunk but the particular body part doesn't look normal? Like, you know, the lips. Fucking, as if a fucking bee stung it. Eyes, like this. Fuck, and their face. It looks like fucking plastic, man. And their body, oh, this is tight. Everything else is loose. Like, you know, people say your tattoos, how would it look when it fucking become old? Yeah, it looks fucking saggy, just like your fucking skin, no? You're not going to look like Miss World or Mr. Perfect. We all will look fucking old and ugly, like this. So, they're not going to get 5-star jobs, they're not going to get high-paid salary, they're not going to get 3 days on, 3 days off, free booze in restaurants and alcohol, free food for Emirates Airlines staff, and no, nothing. You have to work your fucking ass off, you have to show results, you have to work under pressure. Okay, you have a pretty face. You know that joke which is going around? They show proof of income and they're showing a girl taking photocopies of her ass. You know, so proof of income, yeah, that's your proof of income. It's going to be a fucking tough life. Those days, glory days are gone where you can make easy money, easy business. Any business you start, you'll make, oh, you're a big fucking visionary. It's going to be hard, competitive, very fucking competitive. Where once upon a time, Encyclopedia Britannica, now it'll be Google.com, Wikipedia, fucking information seconds. Today, social media is much more fucking powerful. Twitter and all that. By the way, Twitter will close down. You just watch. It will cease to exist because it's not profitable at all. There'll be new micro-blogging sites. Facebook also will no longer have its importance like it used to. They will break it up eventually. After Mark Zuckerberg, nobody else. Google.com also will be considered too powerful. The government will get involved. And that is why China and Russia will bring its own form of web browsing and give so many perks and benefits. It will be very hard to sustain. Countries will change their immigration laws. You know, Muslims trying to bring Sharia law. Not all Muslim, but the troublemakers. They'll have a tough time. They enjoyed a certain level of privilege, like transgenders movement and weather, this thing, and this nonsense about going to Mars. Fix the fucking problem on Earth. What the fuck are you going to Mars for? Elon Musk will no longer exist because he'll die due to overworking himself. SpaceX will be most probably taken by fucking USA. Then Tesla will be there, but there'll be many other companies like Tesla, many electrical companies, because the petrol dependent cars, these companies, that mafia will break up. Many brands will no longer exist. India itself will become so fucking competitive. It'll be crazy, man. Fucking crazy. So, see, the overall, what I'm trying to tell you is the landscape will never remain the same. UAE's leadership, na? Fazza is, I don't know, he's just a pretty boy. I personally don't think he is the leader. Like Sheikh Tamimi, okay. Fazza, still a pretty boy. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate him. He's smart, he's kind, he's handsome. But a country doesn't need smart, handsome, good-looking, poetry champion. No. You need a leader. Where's the leader? Sheikh Zayed was an amazing leader. Khalifa, we don't know anything. Khalifa's face, if you look at it, everyone knows this, he was addicted to substances. He was addicted from sex, drugs to, just look at his face. Look, you know. How did his face become like that? I mean, your face should reflect health. Look at his face. From what he was to what he became. Alcohol addictions is so rampant in the royal family. See the unfortunate incident of Dubai Sheikh losing his son. Abu Dhabi, Sharjah Sheikh losing his son. It's very hard. The problem is if you have Arab Muslims going to the West for fucking education, studying in Oxford or London, you have Western values. How the fuck do you expect them to remain loyal to the Eastern values? You give them modern education with Goras, they will behave like that, no? That's called brainwash. So it's going to be very tough for you guys. Very, very tough. My generation, all of you guys, people who are 50s, 60s, just focus on survival. Make sure that you survive somehow, because your days are numbered. If you're not competitive, you don't brand yourself, I know you might be thinking I'm marketing my services. Fine, let's assume I'm marketing my services. But tell me, if you don't brand yourself, you don't stand out, how will you fucking compete with today's generation? How would you compete? Why do you think I work so fucking hard? Because every day I look at new youngsters. Just think, my daughter, fucking 2-year-old, has an iPad. My daughter, a 2-year-old, has an iPad. Today, small children have an iPhone. They know what is an email. They know what is Microsoft MS Office. Small children. You tell me, when the fuck did you get your first computer? When the fuck did you get your first smartphone? When the fuck did you get your first iPad, man? I got mine. I'll tell you about me. I saw a computer for the first time at the age of fucking 16, 17. I touched it. And that time there was just a green thing, you know. on the screen. C/C/ go to C drive. I had my own computer at the age of 21. My own computer that also I bought taking a Citibank credit card loan. 3,000 dirhams. I think Pentium 1. Yeah. Plexter, a DVD writer, Plexter was almost $600 for a fucking CD writer. Let that sink in. CD writer, not even DVD writer. You know, Napster came and went. Digital music came and went. If you don't upgrade yourself, you are gone. If you don't compete, you don't play the game. When you play football, you play the game football the way it is played. Why do you think football players, they act as if someone hit them? Because they're trying to take advantage of the loopholes of the system. Oh, he got fouled. But cameras can pick up. He's lying. If you're playing cricket, you play the game cricket the way cricket is played. Don't bring a football to cricket and say, no, I want to play the game this way. No. The game has evolved. Once upon a time, you could take steroids. Arnold used to show that he's the alpha male in bodybuilding. Today, you see bodybuilders, they look like fucking mutants. There's no glory days. Once upon a time, WWE, wrestling, people really thought it was real. They thought, Hulk Hogan, Undertaker, they have special powers. Today, we all know that is an act because of technology, because of information. So the point I'm trying to tell you, which you need to drive to your fucking head, is the glory days are gone. You don't evolve, you'll not fucking survive. Resume rebrand. Where was a fucking resume rebrand, man? Those days just put some fucking shit on a resume, copy paste someone else's words. Somebody else would write someone else's CV. Then became the internet, copy paste. Today, if you're trying the same shit, you're trying to make a fucking CV, you're fucking stupid. Then a person with 20 years ability to make like me, why can't I do your job? You have 20 years experience. I should be able to replace you thanks to google.com, right? Very soon, one day, maybe my services also will be redundant. We never know. Maybe AI will take over. Maybe there'll be no need for CVs. Maybe there'll be universal storage of your data, that you just give your passport ID, everything will come out. You don't have to say, sell, market, nothing. When you lose your job, it'll update in the system and companies will pick up, okay, this guy is without a job. The database of all the salespeople, database of all the engineers, database of all the doctors, it'll happen. You don't need to, maybe, like they say, they install a chip in your body. Maybe they will put some barcode laser scanning on your skin, or maybe some way technology will detect. You don't even need to insert any chip or nothing. They will know where you are, what you're doing, because the satellites are roaming everywhere. You know, your information will be centralized. You know, eye scanning, SIM, you can just enter, oh, it scanned your eye from far. It scans your body mass index, your heat signature, your voice recognition, you know, all this futuristic bullshit, no? One day, my services will no longer be required. That's a fact. Why do you think I work my ass off? Why do you think I'm constantly learning new skills and develop myself? We are experiencing a revolution like never before, a change forced by, I don't know, man or nature or whatever. But I can tell you this much. No country, no individual is safe from it. You don't update, you don't upgrade, you're gone. Once upon a time, nobody thought that information you'd get from a vlogger like me. CNN, BBC doesn't get the information faster. I get it faster. Did you ever imagine that? Did you ever imagine like Twitter would give news faster than a media company? Did you ever imagine that doctors, engineers would get paid less? And today, a YouTuber, PewDiePie, they get paid much more. 15, 20 million a fucking year. A podcaster like Joe Rogan gets 50 million just for talking to people. Come on, man. So, you don't evolve, you're gone. Even for me, what I'm doing is a phase. One day, my services will no longer be required. But that time I'll cease to exist. New generation will come in. But until then, as long as I live, as long as you and I live, we have to survive, right? To make things happen, right? Just think, once upon a time, we had telegram, no email. Today we have SMS. Anyone thought telegram and letter writing postal would cease to exist? And we can go on and on with this conversation. Today, I survive not with a salary. I survive by you guys donating. Just think about it. By people taking my services. This is a world that it has come down. I'm staying on an island. I share my thoughts, my opinions, my analysis, my research, and I earn a livelihood. Do you think that would be possible in 1980s, 1990s, 2000s? Even up to 2010, it was not a reality. Anyway, man, it has been a long talk. Spoke for 1 hour, 10 minutes. Massive video. You know, this is life. Where once upon a time people would travel in their car, get up in the morning, travel through airports, work long hours. It's gone. Anyway, do support my work if you can. I appreciate all the love and support that you guys can give me. I'm also getting old. Fuck, man, what a life. Anyway, guys, you guys take care. Thanks for watching. See you.
I believe I'm the right person for this job because I'm very feminine for this role. My feminineness, feminine sexuality, feminine personality will add value to this feminine role in the most feminine way possible.
Stop getting the wrong advice. Ensure you get the right skills for the right job for jobs in the Middle East. Contact Loy Macedo.